So in the last class, we discussed about the introduction of the embedded firmware, what is embedded firmware and what are the different methods used for developing the embedded firmware and some of the system components, right? So system components, for example, a reset circuit, a reset integrated circuit, brownout production circuit we discussed, and real-time clock, watchdog timer, yes or no? So these are all the system components we discussed in the last class, along with the core of the embedded system, memory of the embedded system, and communication interfaces we are having. We also required some of the system components for the proper functioning of the embedded system, not only for the proper functioning, but also for the proper execution of the embedded firmware. We required some of the system components and different methods what we use to develop this embedded firmware also we discussed. Mainly two methods are available there, yes or no? Writing a program in assembly level language or writing a program in high level language and using some utilities provided by each vendor or manufacturer of the core of the embedded system. Yes or no, ma? So these are all the topics we discussed yesterday. So can you please see the syllabus of the third unit and tell me the remaining topic? I send you the soft copy of that syllabus paper, right? So if you see the syllabus paper, the only remaining topic in the third unit is that firmware design approaches and development languages, right? What are all the design approaches and development languages for the embedded firmware? So today we are going to discuss about embedded firmware development languages and what all the languages are used to develop the embedded firmware. What are all the languages are used and what are different types of languages and what are the mnemonics used for that, what is the template used for that and how to execute that. Okay, different types of languages and advantage, disadvantages of different types of languages which are used for the embedded firmware. So see here, embedded firmware development language. For embedded firmware, to develop the embedded firmware, we can use either the assembly level language or what is the second thing? High level language. Yes or no? Either assembly level language we can use or high level language we can use. And third is combination of assembly level language and high level language. Tell me now what are the different types of languages? There are three types of languages that are possible to develop the embedded firmware. They are target processor or target controller specific language. That language is also called as assembly level language. Second thing is target processor controller independent language. That type of language is also called as high level language. Okay. And third category is a combination of both assembly level language and high level language. Tell me what are the three types of languages which are used to develop the embedded firmware? What are the three types of languages are used to develop the embedded firmware? Tell me, ma, what are the three types of languages are used to develop the embedded firmware?
Target processor control the specific language and also it called as the assembly language. The target processor control independent language. It is also called as a high level language.
And combination of?
And combination of assembly and high level language.
Yeah. See, in another way, you can also say processor dependent language, processor independent language, and combination of both. What language is called as processor dependent language? And what processor is called as what language is called as processor independent language? Which language?
Processor dependent assembly language.
Yeah. Processor independent is?
High level language.
High level language.
Very good. And the combination of these two. Remember, processor dependent language or assembly level language or low level language are same. Either the assembly level language or low level language or process specific or process dependent language is same. And third thing is, and what is the third thing? And what is the third thing? Combination of both. Okay. So next thing is first go for the process dependent language or assembly level language. Process dependent language or assembly level language. Okay. So here assembly language is a human readable notation of machine language, whereas machine language is a process of understandable language. Who can understand this? Machine can understand. No, user can be able to understand this one. To make it understandable by the target processor, what we need to do? We need to convert these assembly level language or low level language into what? Binary code, which can be understood by the binary code can only be understood by the core of the embedded system. So here machine language is made readable by specific symbols. And what all the symbols are used to specify the or to write the program in assembly level language? What are the symbols used here? Symbols are called as mnemonics. Mnemonics are the symbols which are used in the assembly level language to write the program. To write the program in the assembly level language or low level language, we use some symbols. The symbols are called as mnemonics. Okay. Hence, machine level language can be considered as an interface between the processor and the programmer. Surely it is an interface. Yes or no? We are conveying some information to the processor. Definitely it is a interface between the processor and the programmer. How the programmer gives some information to the processor through this language only. So we can say it is an interface between the processor and programmer. Here in the assembly level language, we'll use some symbols. That symbols are called as mnemonics. It is a very important question for the 1 mark. What is the symbols used in the, what are the symbols called as used in the assembly level language? What is that symbols called as, which are used in the assembly level language? Mnemonics. Mnemonics are the symbols which are used in the assembly level language. Okay. So next here, as we already discussed that this assembly level language are processor dependent. What do you mean of processor dependent? For example, if you are using the 8086 as the core of the embedded system, the assembly level language or the symbols or the mnemonics which are used for the 8086 are different. And if you are using the ARM7, the mnemonics which are used for the ARM7 are different. The mnemonics which are used for the 8086 are different. 8051 are different. If you are using another board as the core of the embedded system, that mnemonics are different. So that we can say that is processor dependent language. See here, assembly language and the machine language are the processor dependent. Why it is so called processor dependent? Assembly programs written in one processor family will not work for the other process or other family. And next thing is assembly level programming is the task of writing the process specific machine codes in the mnemonic form and converting these mnemonics into processor understandable codes. That is called as binary codes. First, we'll write the program in the mnemonics. Using the mnemonics, we'll write the program in the low-level language. After writing that, these mnemonics will be converted into processor understandable code. Processor understandable code is nothing but binary code. Who will do this work? Who will do this conversion? Who will do this conversion? No. Tell me, in the case of low-level language, who will do this conversion? In the case of high-level language, who will do this conversion? We already discussed about this utilities. Yes or no? Yes or no? Assemblers, compiler. We didn't discuss about that?
We discussed, madam.
Yeah, assembler. What is the work of the assembler? Hello? Hello? Can you able to hear my voice? Hello? Can you able to hear my voice? Yeah. What do you mean of assembler? Assembler is the utility which converts the program written in low-level language or system-dependent language, that is called as assembly level language, into processor understandable language, that is binary code. So the utility which converts the low-level language into binary equivalent binary code is called as assembler. So in the first type of language, that is process-dependent language, we'll write the program in the assembly level language using some mnemonics which differ from different family of the different family of the process. For every process family, these mnemonics are different. Yes or no? So after writing these programs in the mnemonic form, we'll convert these mnemonics into binary codes, which can be understood by the processor. Why? Because these mnemonics are not understood by the processor. Why? Because all the process and the controllers what we are using at the core of the embedded system are the digital circuit. Digital circuit can't understand this assembly level language or high level language. They only understand the binary codes. Yes or no? So here we can see the general format. Here we can see the general format of the assembly level language instruction. Okay. So remember, the format of the assembly level language is having two parts. Mainly, it should have the two parts. Apart from the, it may also have the labels and comments also. And compulsorily, it should have the that format should have the two parts. First thing is opcode. Second part is operand. Tell me what are the two parts of that format of the assembly level language should have?
Opcode and operand.
Opcode and operand.
Opcode and operand. What opcode will tell and what operand will give? Opcode tells the operation need to be performed. Okay, opcode tells the operation need to be performed, whereas the operand gives you the information and the data which required to execute that opcode. Yes or no? Are you able to understand? Opcode give you the operation need to be performed, which operation the processor has to do. That will be indicated by the opcode. Okay, so here we can see opcode tells what to do, and operand gives the information to do the task. To do that operation, it requires some information, some data it requires, some variables it requires. Yes or no? Those variables are given by the operands. Here we can see the examples of this opcode and operands. The operand may be single operand or dual operand or more. Okay, see, this is the example. Move A, 30. What is the opcode here? What is opcode?
Move, ma'am.
Move A is the opcode here.
Opcode.
And 30 is the operand. So to perform the move operation is nothing but moving the operands from one place to another place, from one location to another location. So to do that operation, to perform the task, what I required some data. The data is given by the operand. 30 is that operand here. Okay. So same instruction in machine level language. It is assembly level language, and this language can't understand by the processor. Yes or no? So we should convert these assembly level language into machine understandable language. This is the machine understandable language. Here you can see what I'm pointing here now. So this is the binary code equivalent of this assembly level language. And now can you understand about this assembly level language? Did you get some knowledge regarding this assembly level language? Yes or no? Format of the assembly level language. Yeah. So these assembly level language is processor dependent. For every processor, for each processor, the mnemonics are different. We should know the mnemonics of the particular processor which we are going to use in our application. And that language have mainly two parts, opcode and operand. That format should have two parts, mainly should have two parts. Apart from this, it may also have the labels and also have the comments that we are going to discuss in the next slides. Mainly, it should have the opcode. Opcode tells that what operation the processor has to perform. And after that, operand gives information to perform the task. To perform that operation, some variables are required, some data is required. That data is given by the operand. This is the best example you can see here. Move A, hash 30. Hash indicates before the variables, we should mention the hash. Okay. So here, move A is operation need to be performed. To perform that operation, we require some operands. Operands are given by this part. Okay. And this move A, 30 won't understand by the processor. No. So that should be converted into processor understandable code. Processor understandable code is nothing but binary code. So here you can see this is the binary equivalent of the that instruction. Binary equivalent of the above instruction. The mnemonic INCA. For example, second example also I am giving. INCA, it is the increment A, incrementing the content of accumulator. Okay, so the mnemonic INCA is the example for instruction holding the operand implicitly in the opcode. Yes or no? So INCA is the example of another example we can consider. INC means incrementing the content of A. A is nothing but accumulator. Yes or no? INCA, incrementing the content of accumulator. So these are all some of the examples of the assembly level language programming. And some more important instructions regarding the assembly level language we can see here. And next we will move to the next level of language, that is high level of language. Okay. So here assembly level language instructions are written in one per line. That is one of the rule should be followed in the case of assembly level language. What is that rule? For one line, one instruction should be there. Okay, one instruction per one line. A machine code program thus consists of a sequence of assembly language instructions where each statement contains a mnemonic. So for each line, one instruction will be there, and each instruction should have its mnemonic. Next, each line of the assembly level program is splitted into 4 fields. It should have 4 fields. 2 are compulsory, 2 are optional. So see here, it is the template. It is a format need to be followed by the assembly level language program. What is that format? Label, opcode, operand, comments. Tell me the 4 fields of the assembly level language instruction format. Tell me the 4 fields of the assembly level language program instruction. That instruction format should have 4 fields. Yes or no? What are the 4 fields? Tell me.
Label, opcode, operand,
comments.
Comments. Yes or no? We already know about this opcode and operand. What opcode indicates? Opcode indicates operation need to be performed. What operand gives us? Operand gives the variables or the data need to execute that opcode. To perform that opcode, the operation specified by the opcode, we require some data. We require some operands, right? So those are given by the operand field. And here label is an option field. Comments is also optional field. What this label indicates, see here. Label is an optional field. A label is an identifier to remember where data or code is located. It mentions the address. It mentions the address that indicates the address of the code, address of the data. Yes or no? Label is commonly used for representing the address. A memory location, address of a program or subroutine, code portion, etc. See here, for example, I'm executing the assembly level language. I need to move to subroutine. I need to execute a subroutine. See, subroutine is nothing but a set of instructions, a small program, subpart of the program. Yes or no? So if we need to execute the subpart of the program more than one time in that application, instead of writing again and again the same set of instructions, you should write it as a subroutine or as a function, or you can call it whenever you require to execute that. Yes or no? So after writing that subroutine or a set of instructions as a function or subroutine, you will indicate one address. Yes or no? That address can be represented by using this label. Okay. So if you want to execute a sub function repeatedly in the same application, instead of writing the same set of instructions again and again, what you need to do, once you write the subroutine or once you write the set of instructions, and we'll assign some address to that. Yes or no? So whenever you want to execute the same set of instructions, what will you do? The address you will call, instead of writing the same set of instructions again and again, the address what you assign for that function, no, you just call that address with the help of the label. So label can be used for that purpose, to represent the address of the subroutines, to and also to represent the address of a program. Represent the address of a program. So these are all the different fields of the assembly language program instructions. Okay. See here, you can see here example. Delay is the label here. Okay, it is the delay function. Whenever you want to execute the delay function, instead of writing these 3 lines again and again, what you need to do, just call this delay function. This delay function should be assigned with some address. So that address will be assigned for delay. label delay, and you can just call delay. See here, L call delay. Instead of writing these 3 instructions again and again, you just call using the call instruction. You just call the delay function. Okay, that is the use of the label field. See, what is the delay function should have? Move R0, 255, and DJNZ. Jump if not 0. Okay. If 225 becomes 0, till 325 becomes 0, it will be executed. I mean, decrement and jump if not 0. So for one iteration, this 255 become 254. Again, it is not equal to 0, and again this will be executed. And decrement, again decrement and jump if not equal to 0. Again, once again it will become 253. Okay, so it is not equal to 0. Again, that will be jump to delay. So and so this loop of instructions, these 3 instructions will be executed till 255 times. So no, after 255th time, 255th iteration, what it will do? It will become 0 at that time. Once you decrement, it will become 0. Yes or no? So at that time, decrement is not equal to 0. It became 0. So it will come out of the loop. This condition is unsatisfied and it will come out of the loop. So these set of instructions. So for 255 times it will be executed, and for that 255 nanoseconds the delay will be generated. Okay. So this is about the delay function. So instead of writing these 3 instructions again and again, what we need to do? We just call the delay function using the call instruction. Okay, so this delay is called as label. Like that, the labels can be used. Okay, executing this instruction transfer the program flow into the memory address referred by the label delay. So to execute these 3 instructions, no need to execute it again and again. No need to write it again and again in the same program. So instead of writing that, you just call it delay function using the instruction call. So this is the use of label. Here delay is the label. Label, opcode, operand. And it is the comment. Okay, that also we'll discuss in the next slide. See here. See, 4th field of the assembly level instruction. While assembling the code, semicolon you can see here. Semicolon inform the assembler that the reset of the part coming in a line after the symbol, so semicolon, and after the symbol, whatever you write, it won't consider by the after the symbol semicolon. Whatever you write, it won't consider by the assembler. Isn't it? While assembling the code, inform the assembler that the reset of the part that will be reset part coming in the line after the symbol semicolon. They simply ignore it. Isn't it? So more than one ASM lines are not allowed in a single. As I already told, for a single line, one single ASM code should be there. In the previous example, label delay represents the reference to start the subroutine. The labels are also used to indicate the starting of the subroutines. Yes or no? So here, semicolon indicates the semicolon is the threshold line, you can say. After the symbol semicolon, whatever you write in the instruction in the line of that assembly level code, it won't consider by the assembler. The assembler just ignore it. Yes or no? So while assembling the code, the semicolon informs the assembler that the reset of the part coming in the line after the symbol called semicolon. So it considered as the comments and simply ignore it. So in the